we cannot continue expanding the expenses of Chile as a country, because there is not going to be a way to manage the amount of debt that Chile it's acquiring right now. And we need to be realistic on that. This is not this is not only about having a certain political view, but it's having a view on putting the interest of the country in front, and understanding that the resources are limited, and they needed to be used in an intelligent manner.
This is Atlas Network with Michael Carnuccio.
Welcome to Atlas Network with Michael Carnuccio, the podcast where we bring you face-to-face with the heroes of the worldwide freedom movement, the local leaders fighting for liberty, free enterprise, and limited government in the places that need them most. I'm your host, Michael Carnuccio, and today we're heading to Chile, a nation facing big promises and even bigger problems when it comes to government accountability. Joining us is Santiago Acosta, International Programs Manager at the think tank behind Government Track Record Unveiling Populism, one of the most ambitious civic accountability projects in Latin America. This initiative has transformed political rhetoric into measurable indicators, tracking what Chile's leaders promise and whether they actually deliver. We're going to talk about how this work has shifted the political landscape, exposed the machinery of populism, and created new civic transparency that's leading to changes across the spectrum. Let's dive in and talk about what's happening. Santiago, since you all launched this initiative, I got to know, what is the biggest thing that you've uncovered so far, and what happens next?
Thank you, Mike, for the invitation, and thank you, Atlas Network, for the opportunity to be here to share our ideas and our project. I would say that the most important thing is that we are taking this conversation into media, into public opinion, and raising concerns about the government uncompliant, what it promises during the government plan proposal and the campaigning. And at the same time, it's also checking how the resources are being used. Because one of the main problems that we have is maybe you can offer or promise a lot of things, but at the same time, the resources are not enough to comply with all of that promises. And that's where populism comes, because most of the time we're seeing, currently we're seeing all around the world leaders are promising a lot of things, and probably most of them cannot be done. Not only because they can be bad proposals, but at the same time because there are not enough resources, because there is not enough capabilities, because there is not enough capacity from government to achieve those goals that they propose to themselves. And what we have been trying to do, it's not only checking the government plan, but also the State of the Union promises during the speech of the president to Congress, and what are the commitments they are taking in front of the whole country, to see if they are compliant or not. And at the same time, we are checking the budget execution of that proposals to see if there are enough resources or not, and how the resources are being invested in Chile. That has come to a great debate, because other think tanks from different political views has also started to do the same checking, trying to contrast ideas to assess the compliance from different perspectives. And we think that just by bringing this conversation into the public debate and the public opinion, we are already having success on raising accountability on government promises, and trying to bring government attainable to this checking, in order to be sure that future campaigns are going to promise things that they can actually deliver, and to keep government at the end focus on what they promise to comply with.
It sounds, I think probably our listeners would say, well, yeah, holding politicians accountable to what they promise, this is not a novel concept. But before 2022, before you all started doing something, there was a vacuum. Why was there such a vacuum in Chile?
One of the things that President Boric arrives to power after the social outburst in Chile during 2019. And there is a reality. I mean, there's a social discomfort with this, with the reality. I mean, Chile has achieved a lot of progress, of economic progress, through capitalism, through liberalism, through private property, through a pension system that works, and of course, it comes also with a growing middle income class, but with a lot of vulnerabilities still. I mean, education, health, there are a lot of things that are part of the concerns of the people, and part of the political landscape here in Chile took that in advantage to claim for refund of all the institutions, and they called people to protest, and what went in that way. I mean, after all, we ended in a constitutional reform process, and that process didn't end well because of a lot of scandals and problems and bad proposals that were not willing to solve problems, because from the beginning you don't solve problems of the people by changing the constitution. You solve problems by managing better the opportunities, the state, reducing blockades to opportunities and to creativity, innovation. But at the same time, because of these scandals and a lot of things all around, we ended in a rejection of that proposal of constitution, of new constitution. So we are in a country that it's frustrated about the political expectations that have rejected not only that project but the following one, because we opened a second constitutional project and that project was also rejected. So people it's tired about things, and in that context is where Boric is governing, and all of the proposals that they made to came into power after the government of Sebastián Piñera, the second government of Sebastián Piñera during the pandemic, and the social outburst was refunding the institutions, creating new bureaucracy, trying to pass laws in a Congress where they didn't have a majority. And what we were assessing is that only 40% of the proposals made by the government were achieved during the first 3 years of government. So there is a lack of compliance of these proposals, probably because of the context, probably because of the world that nowadays it's turning each day in a different reality. But what we are being sure about, it's like to show where are the things that has been possible to attain from government. And we separate the promises in two main aspects. One are the management things that they can promise us from the executive branch, and at the same time we have on the other side legislative branch promises, because during government you can work from the executive by doing things from the ministers, from different government plans and perspectives, and at the same time you can try to pass some legislation on certain topics to help the country. We have seen that most of the commitments were focused on security, and that was not a priority of this government. It was like the reality imposed them the opportunity to take care of that promises, and because of the help of the opposition in Congress to push for reforms and for legislation on security aspects, is that the government has had success on that promises. But regarding the government plan that was completely tied to the constitutional process, we have seen that Boric administration has not complied with the promises they did. So probably there is a bit of populism on the way they presented the ideas, because things that they promise they will do, or they will have success in, were not possible to attain during the administration.
So I'm sure you get this question all the time, especially since you all started this initiative, almost 4 years ago. Okay, so we're tracking promises and we're tracking to see if the government delivers. Have you seen any impact from that? Has it changed behavior? Are you getting the kind of positive or measurable impact that you hoped when you launched the program?
Yeah, what we have done, it's like presenting these ideas, of course, open a door to opportunities of engagement with authorities. with budgetary authorities from the government, from evaluation of policies, units that are trying to assess if certain programs should continue or not because they are not attaining what they should. At the same time, we were invited to the Council of Transparency, that it's an authority here in Chile where civic society participates in order to guarantee transparency from government, in order to keep civil society aware of public spending and at the same time how the government is working. And IdeaPaís has been invited to be part of this Council of Civic Society in the Council of Transparency. With other organizations, we have been able to present certain ideas on how to monitor government delivery and plans in order to improve the assessment of public plans that are publicly funded. So we need to be sure that programs that are funded with the income of the country are having an impact. If not, they should not be funded, and if they're not even completing what they are their goals or they aiming, they should be cut off from the opportunities of funding with public finances. And at the same time, I would say that we have reached a lot of people through social media. One of the products that we have worked in is a podcast where we explain the fiscal balance and the importance of having not excessive cost from the state because it would affect the whole economy in Chile. We debate this with budgetary offices from different governments, and we try to explain the importance of this fiscal rule in Chile that has been able to guarantee the country's growth and economic opportunities, meaning that we cannot continue expanding the expenses of Chile as a country because there is not going to be a way to manage the amount of debt that Chile it's acquiring right now. And we need to be realistic on that. This is not only about having a certain political view, but it's having a view on putting the interest of the country in front and understanding that the resources are limited and they needed to be used in an intelligent manner, because if not, when there are going to be future emergencies or times where the income of the country is going to vary depending on the economy, we need to be able to surpass those moments with enough balance within the public resources.
One of the things I think is pretty neat about not just what you all are doing, but how you're tracking success. You've actually documented where other think tanks, other organizations, governments have started to use your methodology to track success, and that says something, right? Imitation is the highest form of flattery, is the saying that we have quite a bit. But why do you think that your methodology, why do you think that your approach has caught on and others are starting to adopt it as well?
Yeah, well, I would say that the most important thing is that understanding that government plan promises sometimes are made on slogans and great phrases that try to achieve or appeal to voters. But at the same time, it was bringing those promises into key performance indicators. So if you promise to improve security and better policemen, so let's try to see how was the amount of resources dedicated to policemen. How was if they propose to improve the security plans all across the country? Okay, what are the amount of security plans that are being updated or are working? So it was trying to bring metrics to those promises that sometimes are ambiguous, are more voter appealing than actually technical, presented in a technical way, so you can measure how government is working or it's improving. Because if you don't present in a technical way these promises, of course you can do whatever you want, and that would mean the government having the power to do whatever they want and just appealing that the voters decided for them to do those things. So what we try to do is understanding actually under the law under the competencies that the executive branch has and that the legislative branch has, what are the deliverable things that the government actually can do. And that's what I think was the most helpful thing, because afterwards, other think tanks from different ideology, as I'm mentioning, try to do the same assessment in a way, probably with other optic, or trying to see in a different way the way that these indicators were presented. But at the end, it's trying to raise awareness on that when you present a government plan, you cannot just make slogans. You need to understand that this is a responsibility towards civic society, towards the population, and you need to present it in a technical and professional way, because public resources are going to be used. So these are resources of the whole population. And if when you have a private company and you present your budget and you present your strategic plan for the year, you are obliged to present certain indicators, and it should be the same with administration. We should not have government a blank check on what they can do or not do, just going through slogans. And I think that this was really helpful, and this was really helpful for other think tanks for reply this. And at the same time, in the legislative debate, we had a lot of member of parliaments quoting our report to put the importance of certain topics that were not being attained during the government. And it was helpful for opposition members of parliament too, because even when you don't want, probably because you don't share the same views of the government plan of the government of Boric, you also want to see how you can take the administration to comply with certain common ideas or common agendas that were included in the government plan, and that you can try to fix the way they are proposed. You can try to amend certain perspectives, but at the end, it was really helpful to have this way to find indicators, objective and technical standards, and being able to present this in simple for the civic society. At the end, it can be hard for a citizen that is working, that is doing all their familiar duties, to understand a technical standard for the legislative of the country, for legislative power of the country. But keeping this in simple and telling them, look, they presented 10 commitments regarding security, and they only comply in this, and these are in process, but still without an answer. So it was trying to track the record of this and make it simple so people can choose better authorities in the future.
You know, when I ran a free market think tank in Oklahoma, and I would have the opportunity to speak publicly, one of the questions I loved asking the audience of taxpayers all the time is I would say, hey, how many of you with 100% certainty, right, feel comfortable that all of your tax dollars are being spent efficiently and how you would spend them? Well, nobody would raise their hand, right? Everybody was a skeptic, but it was a sense, it was a feeling. What I find so fascinating about what you and your colleagues have done is in 2025, you just published a report where you literally documented discrepancies in government reporting data all the way down to the regional level. So it's no longer just this sense that Chileans would have, but you were able to show like, hey, wait a minute, there are gaps here. So what did you find about these discrepancies in how public dollars were being spent, and what has the impact been since you uncovered that information?
Yeah, what we did with that is that we take the national level to a regional level. So we had these reports for the different years, for the 3 years of Boric, and now we're going to cover the 4th years of Boric in a national perspective. But at the same time, as we are present in different regions in Chile, five regions is where IdeaPaís is working. We told our regional offices to do the same track record, or trying to assess the government promises at a regional level. And what we found was that the authorities from the regional government shared some data with us through a requirement of public information that Chile has as a mechanism, as a legal mechanism, that was different from the one published by the budget the direct budget direction at a national level. So it was a discrepancy between what the national level was reported about the public spending through to the one presented by the regional authorities. So that what that shows is a lack of coordination between the national level and the regional level on how much of the resources are being spending and how are they being spent. So we rise this discrepancy as a problem, and we have been talking to regional authorities and national authorities to try to see the way it can be solved. I mean, the answer of which one has the reason, we don't have it because we're a think tank outside of the government and we don't have access to the specific accounts. But at the end, what we discovered is this is a discrepancy. So you need to be sure that this is researched and investigated, because there could be a possible misuse of public resources. And if that is the case, you should open an investigation and find where are the resources. So it also this allows us to find where are these specific points where we should pay attention to how the resources are being spent, and where we I mean, and as a citizen, you should have the opportunity to choose where you wanna place more resources or opportunities, or focus the role of government and the administration, and maybe this price would allow us not just at the national level but at the regional level to show how authorities are managing public funds and prioritizing certain topics that maybe are not in the public interest and maybe are just in their interest.
I know we've been talking in the context of Chile, obviously, and your work has brought focus from the worldwide freedom movement there in your backyard. But something tells me that the success of your work and the efforts have had a bigger impact throughout all of Latin America. I imagine partnerships with other colleagues or just initiatives that are starting elsewhere. Have you seen a ripple effect beyond your borders throughout Latin America?
We're willing to do that. What we have been doing is sharing the experience with different Atlas Network partners, because we believe that this can be replicable. One of the main challenges for that is that Chile is one of the countries with better accountability of government, in a way that there is a lot of public information. So you can access through transparency mechanisms to different information from different authorities that are obliged to give you information because the law established that. Maybe in other countries in Latin America, we don't have that strong capacity from institutions to track all of this information or to deliver this information. So it could be harder to check what's the status of the public spending on a specific program in Bolivia or in Guatemala or in Ecuador. So when we're trying to speak or to work with our partners all across Latin America, it's finding the way to make capacity building for them to find where they can measure the work of government. And probably they're going to need to work with governments. I mean, at the end, this is not a battle against the government or against the authorities. This is a work of making transparency and civic accountability, and showing the population what they need to have, that it's information on how the resources are being spent, what's the prioritization of social issues or concerns from the government and from the authorities, and trying to improve the way it is delivered and allowing the society to choose better how they want to be ruled. And of course, it goes through the rules. I mean, we cannot have governments doing whatever they want. They need to have rules. They need to comply with the law. And if there are public spending that it's not being spent accordingly with the law, there should be investigations, and it should have the possibility of civil society to push forward a more transparent and limited administration.
Folks, if you're as inspired about the work that Santiago and his colleagues are doing in Chile, I ask you to go to atlasnetwork.org, where you can find information about what they are up to, as well as Santiago just mentioned, all of the great work that is happening throughout Latin America. In fact, while you're there, you'll learn about the worldwide freedom movement and how you can be part of this growing movement for freedom and liberty across the globe. You can join my wife and I as members of the Atlas Club, or you could make a $25 donation and receive Freedom's Champion magazine. So encourage you to go to atlasnetwork.org today and become part of the worldwide freedom movement. And Santiago, I'd love to shift the conversation to your partnership with the Atlas Network, being not just a member and a partner of Atlas Network, but more importantly, the interaction. How has Atlas Network helped you to grow and sharpen your role and maybe connect with other peers?
Well, first of all, I would like to thank all the Atlas Network team because they have been so helpful, not only by making this possible through grants or opportunities, but at the same time by being partners in a way that they can be a support. They can teach us what are the better practices that we are understanding and we're seeing all around the world. And I think one of the most important things was going to the think tank 360 training, because it allowed us to understand what's the main goal of this proposal, what are the key objectives that we have, how to present outputs and outcomes in a way that our work can be measurable and we can understand what's our impact. And it allows us also to focus. I mean, if our main goal is to present this in a way that it's more attractive to the civic society, we need to have more focus on visual content, on how to communicate this through social media, how to present it in a podcast, or how to present it in a video, more than just a report. Maybe this is part of what I think it's the most valuable thing about Atlas Network partnership. It has been the way they have walked the path with us since the beginning, by just presenting a report, then moving toward identifying, okay, we presented the report, but maybe this is not impactful enough, because we can publish a report, but no one's going to read it. So we need to present this in meetings, we need to present this in videos, we need to present this in other formats that are more close to the people, and in a way that it's more effective. So I would say that Atlas Network has been essential for the delivery of this project. I think that Alisa, Derek, Graven, all the team has been close to us. We are friends more than just colleagues, and that has been really helpful. That they are all the time caring about the way we are delivering, but at the same time caring about ourselves as people. You know, like they understand that we have families, they understand we have friends, they understand we're in a country's context. So that's really helpful, because it allows us to work better and to put the focus where it needs to be put, and also having opportunities to present in different spaces, not only the Latin American Libre forums that I think are really important. So all of you that are watching us, trying to find where's your Libre forum event, because this is a great space to connect with others, to share ideas, to share practice, and to find a way to improve your projects. But also, for example, the Radical Innovation Summit, where we presented another project that was like a follow-up of this one, where we are trying to track public expenditure in a better way through AI, through technology. So it's really useful to have Atlas Network as a partner, because it has opened us opportunity to connect, to learn, and of course to try to aim higher. I mean, when you are connected with great people, you're working in a network, you are willing to have bigger and greater goals, and I think That's really important nowadays because we're facing huge challenges that are affecting the life of a lot of people. So in a way that we can promote these connections and we can work together to improve the world, to find more virtuous and free society where individuals are respected, where families are important, where we can guarantee human dignity. That's the most important thing. And by doing these things that sometimes are seem like far from these objectives, I think we are improving that. Because a social program that it's bad assessed and it's spending public resources, it's a way of wasting resources that can be put into improving the quality of life of families. It's wasting resources that can be or can be limiting innovation, can be limiting intelligence, can be limiting the opportunity of entrepreneurships. So I think it's really important to make governments accountable of what they promise, and at the same time, it's setting a base to assess the governments, to assess the proposals. But this project aims to make that base. So let's see. Okay, you propose this. What are you complying with? And I would like to say something that I think I missed before. That there is a deficit in the budgetary execution of government. So government is not being able to execute the amount of resources they have. This is for different reasons, but one of them is lacking the capacity to do that. So if government is not being able to execute that amount of resources, why is government asking for that amount of resources? I mean, this doesn't mean that we need to eliminate taxes as a whole, but it means that maybe we are asking too much for resources that are not being well invested. So it's trying to find a way where there is a balance. So if you're going to have better investment in infrastructure or in education or in certain topics that are important for the country because it's really investment, why is the government not being able to invest that amount of resources on those certain aspects that are key for society? That's one of the great questions that we should be asking ourselves. It's maybe there's a room for other stakeholders to take the opportunity to invest in those areas and reduce the charge that we have put in on the state. For me, that's one of the conclusions that we can make. And again, this doesn't mean eliminating everything or saying that we need to restructure all the government or all the funds. It means that there are improvements to be made. And taking this conversation into a technical standard where we can take key performance indicators or data, we can have a better society, more democratic, more based on truth, on facts, and trying to make individuals and families and humans at the end have better conditions of living and better opportunities as a whole. Sorry for being too long and inspired
No,
with this.
no. That was fantastic. I appreciate the depth and kind of understanding your thinking, and I could see some of your passion there. And it's funny, you mentioned the Radical Innovation Summit in Mexico City, and right before we started this conversation today, I was trying to remember the first time we met, if it was at the Radical Innovation Summit or actually at a Latin American Liberty Forum. I think it was at a Liberty Forum, and I'm going to mention to all of our listeners and viewers right now that at the time of this recording, there's a Liberty Forum coming up in Lima, Peru. That will be the end of February 2026. So go to atlasnetwork.org, click events, and you'll be able to see not only that event in Peru, the Latin American Liberty Forum that's coming up in Peru, but as Santiago mentioned, there will be one in Europe. There will be one in Asia. We don't want to forget Africa, nor the Liberty Forum and Freedom Dinner that happens every year in New York City in November. That is a can't miss event where the worldwide freedom movement all comes together. Santiago, I wonder if you ran into at one of these events, or maybe today, a conversation with a philanthropist, somebody who is a donor to the worldwide freedom movement. And if they said to you, you know, Santiago, I'm excited about what's happening, but the challenges seem so big, and I'm just one donor. Does my contribution really make an impact? Can I really make a difference with making a gift to either Atlas Network or direct to your organization, your peers? What would you say to that donor?
I think that for sure. I mean, every donation, every effort that we are placing, it's a support of people that it's working every day towards having a better society. It's the support of having the possibility of the materials. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's something that it seems small, but maybe in different countries, a small donation can be something blowing. I mean, mind blowing, because for someone in Africa or someone in Latin America, in a community where there's poverty, where there is lack of opportunities, having the possibility of creating an event, of making a workshop, of reaching out to different people and gather them with some cookies and having a meeting for training them, that's something that could change a life. I mean, if you are a kid that is attending a public school somewhere in Peru or in Bolivia, and there's someone training you on financial education, on how to use the financial system, how to protect your money from inflation, maybe you are changing the life of that kid. Maybe if that was not the opportunity to have that worship, that kid would have their money all the life under his bed, and inflation is gonna affect him, and he's not gonna even understand why the money is not enough for covering their needs or their families. So I would say to anyone trying to help or curious about what Atlas Network and different partners are promoting all around the world, it's try to get more information, connect, inform yourself, but be sure that all the support it's worth giving, all the support it's gonna be useful, and the way in which Atlas Network works with partners, it's really useful because everything is presented in a manner that you are focused on impact. You are not focused on just doing things, but asking yourself, are those things going to have an impact, a real impact, or not? And that allows you to prioritize where you should put your efforts to have better impact, and that also allows you to optimize the expending and the cost of the projects. So I would say that be sure that if you are a donor and you want to help, Atlas Network and all of the partners around the world are great opportunities to invest the resources in a way that it can have real impact.
Let me shift back to the topic of government accountability that you all are focused on and have been so successful with. It strikes me that let me say this. I've been pleasantly surprised at how many listeners and viewers we have of this podcast that are not already part of the worldwide freedom movement, that they've come across the podcast and they start to learn about your peer organizations, Atlas Network, and they have questions, they're interested. And I'm sure for one of them, there's just this base question of, wait a minute, governments now, they have open books, governments post their budgets. And so I think the average citizen across the globe may be surprised that transparency is not already available or that it's limited. What would you suggest to them that you've discovered or that your experience in Chile would teach them about where we stand with government transparency in 2026?
I would say that there is a lot of law and obligation of publishing these data. But at the same time, the format, in the way this is published, it's completely insane and not understandable for people. I mean, if you are asked to download formatting that it's not able to be opened in all the computers, and it's not well presented and not well summarized, of course it's impossible. So this is like a huge puzzle where you can ask for just a piece of the puzzle. And then what we have been doing is trying to make the whole puzzle. I mean, it's trying to ask for all the pieces of the puzzle so we can have a bigger view of the puzzle. And I would say that that's one of the biggest challenges for transparency all across the world, because government is always going to give you small pieces. There is not a platform or well, not in many countries. There is a platform where you can make sure of having a simple way to understand public spending, to understand public activity, to understand government decisions. So maybe the great challenge is how to summarize all of this information, how to have a friendly platform where people can be informed, because you're totally, I totally agree with you, Michael. You can get information for sure. There's a lot of people that can achieve access to certain reports or certain information, but at the same time, that information maybe it's not as simple as it should be, and it's not as complete as it should be. So we need to make more accountability, and we need to be more. I mean, if there's not enough people asking for the information in a proper way, there's not going to be any effort for in part of the governments to give access to this information. If you have civic participation, civic organizations willing to ask for this information, trying to work together in order to solve the challenges. And again, I think one of the key things doing this, it's making government understand that this is not about being an enemy of governments. This is not about being a rebellion or being something against the authority. This is something about making it more efficient. It's something about making it more focused on what it should be focused, and it's working together as civic society to understand what are challenges. I mean, governments most of the time have a lot of challenges. They have not enough people, they have not enough budget, they have not enough offices, they don't have not enough reach. So maybe you should delegate some things. So let ask civic society to be organized and to support the challenges that government has. This meaning that we can make public-private partnerships, that we can work together, that we can improve the lives of people in a better way, while we can work as a society and together to see human flourishing all around.
This project that we've been discussing has made you one of the 3 finalists for Atlas Network's Latin American Liberty Award that's coming up, as we mentioned, here in February in Lima, Peru. What did that mean for you and your team? What is that like for you all to be nominated as one of the finalists? And maybe if you could also answer, what would it be like should you win?
Yeah, well, actually, I think this is a great honor, because we have put a lot of effort on during these years on doing the reports, on doing the project and the deliveries. But at the same time, I think that this would mean another opportunity to increase that voice and to be more present in the debate, not just in Chile, but in Latin America, about the importance of transparency, of civic participation, of accountability by civil society, of what it's been promised. And as our project title, this is a way to unveil populism. We are seeing a phenomenon all across the world where people are saying that they can do whatever they want, because if voters allow them to do that, it's because it's a public mandate. And we need to be sure that this comes to have accountability. We cannot allow the power to be unruled. We cannot allow the power to do whatever they want. There are processes, there are rules, there are voices to be heard in the process of deliberating. So we need to understand that this is important, and I think the Templeton Freedom Award would be an opportunity to raise that voice in a moment where the world is trying to make that quiet. And I also think that the Templeton Award, the Templeton Liberty Award by Atlas Network, will be an opportunity also to recognize all the effort of IdeaPaís and the team here in Chile, and the great work that Chilean authorities have been doing to make information public. I mean, if you if we weren't at Chile, probably this project were not able to be delivered as it was. So I think there are improvements. We need to recognize that improvements, and we need to continue working together, because in a way that in a world where information is public, there's more people that can help, that can make that accountability that it's needed, and at the same time can help decision makers to take better decisions to govern and to have free and prosperous societies. But I would say that it would be an honor. It would be a great moment. I mean, a champagne pulpit moment, as you have in Atlas Network, and it will also be a possibility to raise our voice a bit more in media, not only in Chile but all around the world.
Santiago, a couple last questions I have for you today. Let's bring it home a little bit, right? So let's pretend you and I are having this conversation right there in your office, and we finish and we say, hey, let's go around town. Let's go grab a bite to eat. What is, if we're there in Chile, what do we need to eat? What is the food we have to experience?
Okay, nice. Well, I think I would take you to know Santiago a bit more, maybe to Cerro San Cristobal, that it's a place where you can see a great view from the city, or we could take we could go to grab a pisco sour, that it's a great liquor made with liquor from Chile, and having maybe a lunch with pastel de choclo, that it's a typical dish from Chile, or some seafood, because Chile has a lot of ocean on the side, so we have a lot of great food. I'm Venezuelan, but living in Chile, so I'm just sharing some ideas of someone from abroad living here, and I would say that you would be surprised about Chile. Because even when we are in South America and Latin America, this is a country with a lot of opportunities, with a lot of great people, and with a lot of will to defend virtue and to defend freedom. I would say that one of the societies better prepared to the challenges we're facing, or we have faced in Latin America, has been the Chilean society. I think you will like the way in which Chileans are presented, because maybe at the beginning they are a bit close, but after you have confidence, these people is amazing. They are really supportive, and I think that you would enjoy a lot the seafood. You would enjoy the pastel de choclo, and you would love the landscapes of Chile. Chile is a long country, and you can have from the Patagonia, where you have mountains and rivers and glaciers, to a desert in Atacama, more in the north, where you can see something that it's completely astonishing, and it would be amazing to have you here in Chile to visit, to get to know the country. And I hope, Mike, that the Liberty Forum could be done again soon in Chile. Let's see.
I like where you're going. I like what you're saying, and I think you had all of us excited about coming to Chile. But you mentioned being Venezuelan, and so I have to ask you, if you're okay, talk to us about your personal story and journey. Why? What is it about being from Venezuela and now having the opportunity to have impact in Chile? What is driving you to be involved in the worldwide freedom movement?
Well, that's a great question, but the opportunity I mean, being Venezuelan means today the opportunity of understanding what's the lacks of freedom, and what's the lack of freedom, what's the lack of democracy, what's the lack of rule of law, what's the lack about so many things that for a long time we have suffered in Venezuela. And I think that coming to Chile or travel to different countries since I left my country has been an opportunity to speak about that, but at the same time trying to learn and understand ways in which you can improve society. and maybe you can share values with the freedom movement, you can share values with the social conservative movement, maybe you can be even a social democrat from the center left, but there are certain things that should not be trespassed. And rule of law, human dignity, freedom are things that are a baseline of our civilization. If we start to say that torturing or having absolute power or just focus on money and resources, it's a way to build a civilization. The Western civilization is going to be over. So I would say that as a Venezuelan, it has been a great challenge for sure to migrate to being far from home, from your family, from your friends, to have, of course, all the things that migration comes with, a lot of effort, a lot of different ways to earn resources to have a life again. And at the same time, it has been a great opportunity to meet other countries, to meet other people, to create family abroad, and to find a way where we can make society better and be sure that these lessons that we learned in Venezuela are reminded worldwide. We cannot allow other countries to go through what we had, and I need to say something that's maybe it's gonna be uncomfortable for some, but democracy and rule of law is destroyed from inside. I mean, it's nowadays there's not only wars, but there is a lot of people that believes that unlimited power could be great for societies, and that's our biggest enemy. I mean, we cannot understand right now a world without rules. We cannot understand or tolerate a world where freedom of speech, where civic society, where participation it's not allowed. And it doesn't mean that you can do whatever you want, of course, but it means that we need to be more responsible. We need to find agreements, and we need to protect our civilization based on rules, based on human dignity, based on freedom. And I think we have great challenges nowadays all across the world regarding this. And the lessons from Venezuela, I think, are really resonating all across the country right now.
Given all of that, and I appreciate that, Santiago, our last question I have for you today, I can hear enthusiasm in your voice. I know from being around you before, you have a lot of energy. What gives you hope?
I think that there we need to be sure that there is a better future and that we are the ones that are going to create that future. We cannot be seated waiting for things to happen. We need to make them happen. And I would say that my family, that my trainings, my belief, my all that energy that it's positive and that it's willing to change the future. And I think that building a better world for future generations. I mean, I'm probably all the people that we know, all the family that we know, we are going to have a future generation, and it's on our hands what's the world that we're going to leave for them. And of course, there are going to be times where you are going to be maybe a bit down, maybe a bit sad, maybe you are nostalgic about the past, but that only can give you strength about who you are, who you in which things you believe, and what is the future that you are called to build in a way that it would allow to protect that views that you have. And as I mentioned, I think of course there are going to be hard times, but you need to be really strong about believing that there is a better future, and that future is going to be built by you and your team and your people, and that there are more good and great people around the world than the bad guys. It's only that the bad guys make a lot of noise, but most of the people, it's good people that it's willing to work, to create opportunities, to innovate, and to improve the way in which others live. So let's get together and let's build that future together.
Well, thank you, Santiago, for sharing this bold story of how your organization is holding power to account one promise at a time. And folks, if you found today's conversation as compelling as I did, there's more that you can do. Atlas Network depends on the generosity of people like you to uplift courageous partner organizations like Santiago's. Your support powers training, grants, and global connections that make projects like Government Track Record possible, and it maximizes their impact. So visit atlasnetwork.org to become part of our mission. That's atlasnetwork.org to become part of the mission. And don't forget, we host Liberty Forum events around the globe, plus our annual Freedom Dinner in New York City, and the exclusive Atlas Network experience, which is a travel opportunity that brings our community face to face with the freedom fighters we support. We'd love for you to join us. I'll be there this year. You should be too. Until next time, I'm Michael Carnuccio. Thanks for watching.